Hey, Seattle sports fans, Erica L. Ayala here, your founder of Black Rosie Media and your host of the 206 Sports Collective, where we will be talking about Seattle sports. We're going to focus our attention on hockey because, well, it is indeed hockey season. And of course, we still have Tempestagi Talk, where I talk with Joveta F. Rodriguez about the Seattle Storm. And in the future, we'll have other things to come. If you're not already, please do subscribe to Black Rosie Media right here on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. You can also find us on your favorite audio podcast platform. We are going to continue our hockey coverage. I will continue my hockey coverage here on Black Rosie Media. And today we have a very special guest, and that is the one and only Alison Lukan. I got to speak to Alison Monday, coming off of back-to-back games for the Seattle Kraken, back-to-back overtime games for the Seattle Kraken.
Yes, they were.
And of course, we know that Alison Lukan this Friday, November 28th, will be a part of the first ever home game broadcast for the Seattle Torrent right at Climate Pledge Arena.
They sold out that building up in Vancouver, and I am not going to be showed up by the Vancouver Golden Eyes.
I'm coming to you here as part of the introduction for this episode of the 206 Sports Collective, and also to do a little bit of housekeeping. I had a technical issue with my microphone, so what I'm going to do is chop up Alison's responses to our Seattle Kraken conversation. I asked her about the back-to-back games, the overtime games specifically, and if the trend of 10 overtime games is a good thing or a bad thing for this Seattle Kraken team. Of course, she was able to contextualize that with where the Seattle Kraken sit in the standings. The Seattle Kraken right now are second overall in the Pacific Division in the standings, which is great. They're just behind the Anaheim Ducks, who sit at the top of the table with 29 points. The Seattle Kraken have 28 points and a .636 winning percentage. If we think especially of last year's Kraken team and some seasons past, being second overall in the division with 28 points on the board, we will take. Now, as you will also hear from Alison Lukan, a part of the rub is that offense needs to be better. I also took an opportunity to get Alison's thoughts on Yanni Newman, Shane Wright, Matty Beniers, and Berkly Catton. So grateful for Alison for taking some time out to chat hockey. She also left us with some thoughts and some advice for people, but especially women who are perhaps thinking about making a career change or trying something new. It was very timely advice for me. Always a joy to speak with Alison Lukan, and here is that conversation.
I mean, listen, it's a crazy season. Everyone knows the Olympics are compressing everything, so it's a lot of hockey in a short time, but I don't know if we'd want it any other way, and the Kraken are certainly rewarding us for that. And I had the privilege to go up and see the inaugural PW game in Vancouver on Friday, see the first Torrent game. And it was just electric. And I cannot wait for that energy to hit the Emerald City, because you guys, this team is so much fun. And like, if every day is hockey like we're seeing right now on both the men's and the women's side, I'll take it. Yes, they were. No, it's a great question. And I want to start first and foremost. I said this on air yesterday, Sunday as well, that I think at this point in the season, if you had told fans this is where this team would be, they would be elated. Erica L. elated. How about that? There we go. But, I understand the frustration too, right? Because you want to get over that back-to-back hurdle, but to at least get a point. How many times last year did we watch this team play a game and say, even if they could have taken it to overtime? So I think it's positive. I loved to see, and I appreciated the strategic choice. They flipped the tradition of goaltending deployment, right? So usually your number one goes the first game, your number two goes the second game. They flipped it. Joey gets technically a shootout. That counts as a shutout for him. So that's amazing. And I think, the glass half empty side is you do want to see more offense. I have said this on air. This does not mean we all need to yell shoot at the team.
The other one, we're always yelling shoot. My dad started, when I took him to this first hockey game, he'd go, tira, 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 like 3 times and just kept repeating it. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is good.
They are smarter than us. They are better than us, but would love to see them just start maybe shooting and not looking for perfect opportunities. They're executing some beautiful ideas, passing to the slot or trying to pass to the slot, but sometimes just shoot. And I think, again, it's good. They're keeping themselves well in the hunt, as they should. Getting points early is so much more important than trying to chase late. So overall positive, but continued improvement on offense is definitely needed. Yeah, for sure. And, it's great. I love your analogy of the three young centers that you just named, because you look at a Matty Beniers and they're all different players. So a Matty Beniers is going to thrive defensively, right? That is his skill set. So keeping him in the middle makes perfect sense. Shane has an incredible shot. I think back to 2 years ago, he gets called up. He has like 2 goals in Anaheim, I think it was, like another goal in San Jose. It was crazy. We were on that trip. When you're a center, you have to think about not just how do I attack offensively, but what are my defensive responsibilities? So you really have to think about all 200 feet of the ice. There's a lot more skating usually. And again, there's not just a focus on being in my spots to create, but also being in my spots to defend. So when you move to wing, you still have defensive responsibilities, but you're not primary among the forward group. And so you're a little more free to let that scale, if you will, shift from 50-50 to a little bit more, maybe 65-35, or maybe even greater sometimes, offense versus defense. And you watch too, Lane Lambert likes to put that line out when they're in the offensive zone to make even less of that defensive burden a thing. So it's just about freeing up the list of to-dos from 10 to maybe 6, so that the top 3 are shoot, 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 and the next 2 are score, score, score. And I think it's a quite a few things. First and foremost, I think Yanni is still on his development path, and every path looks different. We don't necessarily need to expect any call up or anyone who starts the season for the first time to stay the whole time. That's not a requirement to be successful long term. Couple things on Yanni. I think that first and foremost, his skating is still developing, and he has that great shot, and he's working. I think he's better already this year than last, but about being able to use his speed and his feet to stick with different lines and stick with the ability to get into spots to score. And to that point, every player, and we hear about this from front offices all the time, you don't get called up just because there's a spot. You get called up because there's a spot in a lineup that suits the type of player you are. And so for Yanni, I loved the call last game by Lane Lambert to actually put him on the third line to start. Now, there was some jumbling as that game went on, but when he's on the fourth line, depending on the identity of your fourth line, your workload's going to look different, and your ability to get scoring chances is going to look different. So he needs the skating to get better so that he could get deployed in a different spot in the lineup. We're in a bit of a chicken and egg here. Again, though, I'm not concerned about it because he's on a path, and he has skills that can continue to grow and get stronger and better. And he's in the process of putting those pieces together.
Yeah. And I think, what you're saying about Yanni, and again, thinking about what is right for him, similarly to what we said about Berkly and Shane, it's also really interesting, Alison, because the Seattle Kraken has become HC opportunity, as I've talked about before, hockey club opportunity once again for these young forwards because of some injuries, right? And we don't have Jared McCann, who has really carried the banner offensively for this team. Freddie Gaudreau was out for a little bit here. So we're getting to see extended minutes, especially, of course, for Catton, and that had to do with what we came into the season with. So it's going to be very curious to see what decisions are made when the Kraken, and specifically Lane Lambert and the coaching staff, right, they have the luxury and the difficult decisions to make when it comes to the roster. But I'm super excited to be here for an extended time to cover the Kraken. But the reason that I made sure I was here in Seattle for this time period is because women's hockey is officially here. The Seattle Torrent, as we mentioned, have already had their first game, but we'll have their first home game coming up, and we get to hear you on the broadcast, Alison. Oh my goodness.
Woo.
Like, I mean, there are so many, and this is going to come into something that we'll talk about as we close the show, but I get the sense that the women that are working with the Seattle Kraken, especially those who are front facing, yourself, Piper, and Jessica Campbell, there are so many young people, especially girls, right? And then just women overall, that are gravitating towards this ability to see women in more front facing roles for the Seattle Kraken. And I know you and I have talked on podcasts before and then just casually, but a lot of what you've been doing with the Seattle Kraken has been new for you. And and so I want to talk about, as we get ready to talk about you being on the broadcast for the Seattle Torrent, in what ways do you feel like maybe the opportunity to say yes and reach outside of your comfort zone with the Kraken is maybe preparing you to do that again with the Seattle Torrent?
It literally that, we had chatted electronically about what we're going to talk about today. And that's literally what's been in my mind. And, people can take it a couple different ways. There's a perception, and I don't know that I disagree with it. I probably agree with it, that traditionally a man gets asked if he can do something and he'll say yes, and then he'll just figure it out. Whereas a woman takes a little more time to make sure she can do it. And we could talk for hours about why that is and all of those things. But that's really a circumstance I've been in professionally here in Seattle. And it's part of why I said yes to this Torrent opportunity, because I'm a little freaked out. You and I have talked about that. But, I have to seize the opportunity. And I think that's part of why this is so amazing, and why when we see people like Jen Bottrell go into the Hall of Fame, is that I get to at least say yes to the opportunity. Tremendously talented women in our community, Liv Lyons, who's the team photographer now as well. Other women, Piper, of course, obviously are getting these opportunities because part of what the PW is doing is opening doors for women at all parts of what a hockey organization looks like. People like Jen Bottrell, people like Jess Campbell, they had to sometimes build the door and sometimes push through a door that was being held actively closed against them. So if I have the luxury of having all of that work open a door for me, I have to say yes, and I have to try.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you said that, because earlier I was listening to Lindsay Gottlieb speak about her time in the NBA. She's now, of course, the head coach of USC women's basketball, but she worked with the Cavaliers. And she talked about that as well, having maybe a little bit of, is this the right move for me? What does this look like for my family? At the time, she had very young children, and then the piece that she said that she spoke with her family about was, okay, but what if I don't do
Exactly.
this?
Exactly.
Does this opportunity exist if I say no? And so I want to, it sounds like, you relate to that. And I want to just tease that out a little bit, Alison, because that seems like in some ways it could be a very great responsibility and also a pretty awesome motivator.
Yeah, fear is a tremendous motivator. Being terrified has been, no, I mean, I think, and you and I have talked about this for years now, quite frankly, and it goes back to even when I had the tremendous honor of calling the rivalry series game when it was here a couple years ago with John Forsland. I see, I just talked about all the work that so many, and we're talking about just hockey. This is happening in so many spectrums of our universe and our lives, even outside of sport. But I get more starstruck by the women players in the PW than I do by the guys in the NHL. Because I have seen them do so much work and seen them go through so much to get to this spot. It was funny. I was showing people on Friday up in Vancouver. I have a picture of being at the first Buttes game ever in history.
Yes.
And now I have a picture of being at the first ever Torrent and Golden Eyes game in history.
Amazing.
And I also see the people like yourself, like others, like the tremendous people at Victory Press, the Ice Garden, so many places who have thanklessly and selflessly toiled so hard to know this game, to grow this game. And I've just been following along like a fan. And so the burden of taking this opportunity and doing it justice in honor of all those people who've done so much work and not always gotten the credit weighs really heavily, not just on the ice, but also off. So that's been I can't get on and do, what Tessa does, or what Kenzie does, because they know the ins and outs of every single one of these players. I'm just going to try and do my thing, and just know, y'all, if I make a mistake, I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to honor, my primary focus is to honor the work that's being done by so many tremendous people in this league and in this game.
Well, first of all, we appreciate that you would, preemptively in this case, but I'm sure that if it came to your attention that you would correct that mistake. That's a part
Please
of
tell me.
the process.
Please tell me. Yes.
That's a part of the process. And unfortunately, I'll make this more broad. As you know, I cover women's sports and have for a while. That's sometimes the rub, is like feeling like, well, we know this could be better, or that it's inaccurate, and feeling like we're getting pushback for mentioning that.
100%. 100.
Yeah.
And I think too, what's going to be hard is it's interesting because the broadcasts are called down the middle, right? So in a way, it's a challenge, because it's the right thing to do, I think, so that the broadcasts can be, as we can invest in one high quality broadcast.
Yeah.
But you're going to have people who maybe like myself, who are coming in to go deep for the first time. I'm going to know the torrent really freaking well, right? And I'm going to have to build my knowledge of the other 7 teams as we go through. And so and we all know, you watch your team in the playoffs, you're like, I wish it was, John and JT calling this game, because they know that Jared McCann does it. So I get it. I get it. We're just going to try. And yeah, as long as it's approached with respect and love, I'll receive it with respect and love, and let's all be better, because if we're all better, we tell these stories better, and these athletes get amplified, and this sport continues to grow.
So as we're going into this new endeavor for you and for hockey in Seattle, I want to again just ask you to reflect on your time specifically with the Seattle Kraken. But what have you learned about who you want to be and how you want to approach your work in working with the Kraken for the last 4 full seasons, now going into season 5? And what are some big things, some big swings that you want to take as you have this opportunity through the Torrent local broadcasts in some kind of ways, but again, through the PWHL to do storytelling on the women's hockey side again?
Yeah, I think, let's start with the women's hockey side, because I'm really digging in there now too. And I think honestly, and this is going to be a two-edged sword throughout this whole thing, but I think on the women's side, and again, this, Erica, from covering so many leagues and sports that don't get equal coverage and equal resources, even finding stats, even finding media resources, and that is by no means the fault of teams' resources. It's just what it is. We need to find a way to amp up the opportunity to let people dig into these games however they want. And particularly with my strength of loving to tell a number informed story, there's so much work we're all doing behind the scenes just to get to a basic level of where so many other men's sports already are. So I think putting a spotlight on that and highlighting that is really, really important. I think doing that to your point, in Seattle, where the focus on amplifying and supporting any women's sport is so high and strong, is going to be really valuable for that. And what I've learned about myself, and what I maybe still don't have an answer for from my time in Seattle, is really, what is my brand? Because I call it data-driven storytelling. I know what it means in my head. But sometimes, people will say, this is a great stat. Tell me this. I'm like, that's not an analytical thing. That's a stat. That's not analytics. And helping people understand what I'm trying to do with data, and also at the same time managing not getting pigeonholed into the stats person is, I think, where it's going. And I think, and this is not the organization by any means, but now being on a bigger platform, we're still seeing that if you're not a quote unquote traditional person coming up through hockey broadcasting, there are going to be people who just don't like that.
Yes.
And I still rub up against that. I still sometimes rub up against people who aren't maybe used to dealing with women who will speak their mind, and women who will perhaps push back. So what I've learned about myself is that I have to keep doing it, because even if it's just a few people who say they saw it and that it helped them, that's why I have to keep doing it.
Wow, that's like a message right on time for me personally. And I appreciate it so much. I mean, we've had, again, these conversations, whether it's on shows or just
or off shows.
Yes, definitely off shows. We don't have to get into, and we won't get into those. No, but I think that what I'm really getting at is that there is a sisterhood, right? And I think that it's been so amazing to be a part of that with you. And I, certainly won't speak for you. And I will offer this as something perhaps for you to reflect on. I think that another part of your, I'm going to say legacy has been that you also are someone who reaches as she climbs, and you're someone who is not only willing to, but feels that it is a part of doing the job well to identify voices, whether it's through data and analytics, whether it's through different podcasts, or, even on this show, you mentioned Liv, who is a behind the scenes person. And there's so many things that you do on social media, on the broadcast to uplift that. So I think that's something that you should probably add to your list of things that's a part of your legacy, intentional or not. It's definitely who you are.
It is intentional. And it's, I mean, I don't know that people truly understand how hard someone like you works as well. And it's, again, if I have someone give me a hand for a big step, I have to make the step shorter for everyone else, because if I'm excited to do this, but there are probably 10, 15 other people from underrepresented communities who probably know more about the PW than me, who could also do this. So the people who've done the work need their flowers while they can still hear you get them.
Yes, indeed. Hey, we love your soapbox, and we love that you are utilizing your platform in a way that is true to your voice. And I love that also you are still exploring that. And so we'll close with this, Alison. I'm sure that you are asked this a lot, and I think it's an important question for us as women in sports media to continue to ask each other. But what is some advice that you would give to someone who wants to come into sports media, but even more broadly, just, women who are trying to find their voice, or are a little bit, fearful, perhaps, to maybe make a move, to do something that maybe more suits their purpose, but maybe is not something that they feel they have enough training in? What would your advice be? And what advice has helped you through as you've navigated that as well?
Yeah, I think it's not an easy answer, right? Because it's a tension between risk and self-care.
Yeah.
And we've talked about some layers of this already, but I think that you have to approach every invitation, whether it be direct and obvious, or that you just see a crack in the door, with the attitude of I can, I will.
Yeah.
To quote our wonderful Jessica Campbell. But you have to say, I'll try.
Yeah.
And my husband always says to me, like, whenever someone asks me to do something that maybe feels awkward, he'll say, you'd rather have them ask than not ask. And I'm like, you're right. So always come with an attitude of yes, with a quick check that your resources, and I mean financial, I mean emotional, I mean mental, I mean tangible physical resources, are going to be able to support you through that jump and that yes. Because say yes, but don't sell your soul. Say yes, and don't put yourself out of being able to care for yourself the way you need to financially. Say yes, but don't be stressed and crying in a ball every night you go home. You have to balance those two things. And I think with all of that, and you've already mentioned the sisterhood, is that find the people that you see that maybe you don't even like. I have talked to Jen Bottrell once in my life and literally made a fool of myself fangirling over her, but she serves as a model to me of someone that I can look to and say, people can do this. I can take notes from her. I will listen to how she does her job. And then there are people you talk to more directly about, maybe it is about how to do the job, or maybe it's, I just need to vent about this. So find that emotional connect, as much as you need to get you through. So cautious risk is my advice to everyone.
Yes, I love that. And again, we've been there to support each other through a lot of these things. You continue to do that for other people, and just so proud to know you, Alison. So excited for what is to come. We've been so excited to see the Alison and Piper experience on Seattle Kraken broadcasts, but now how can we tune in to see that as you bring the experience to women's hockey?
Well, I'm so excited to bring the experience to women's hockey. Piper will be doing pretty much the same role, which is reporter, but that might look a little different than how you've seen her on our Kraken broadcasts. And I will be doing color on the game broadcast. So think of a JT role or the role I filled on the Rivalry Series game. But again, it might look a little different because if you haven't already seen a PW broadcast, we do have some different elements, some different things. There is not a show like what I do for the Kraken. So this is a different role for me. And if you want to watch, we'd love that. We would actually love you to come see it in person, particularly on Friday, because they sold out that building up in Vancouver. And I am not going to be showed up by the Vancouver Golden Eyes.
Ooh, gauntlet thrown. There we go. Alison Lukan is saying the 206 has to raise up.
Listen, people, come out. It's a Friday after Thanksgiving. The most wonderful thing I saw in Vancouver was so many people who were clearly either with it be a child or with a partner where one person knew hockey and the other one didn't. And they were all just there to celebrate and teach each other. Like, it was amazing. But bring more people. Bring more people.
Do it.
And if you want to watch not in the arena and when the Torrent are on the road, you can go to thepwhl.com. There's a little menu item called schedule, and it will tell you where you can find us. If you're in Seattle, we'll be on Fox 13 and also the PW YouTube channel.
Well, we cannot wait to tune in. I will be there on Friday as well. Ava Wood, who's been helping us contribute, will be there. But we will also have Sylvia Leja, who I'm sure will be tuning in from Los Kraken. So we'll get a nice perspective and see how you did. We have all the confidence in the world, Alison. So you know you have a band of cheerleaders that are going to be following you that cannot wait to see what you do in this next endeavor. So Alison Lukan, thank you so much for joining us here at the 206 Sports Collective that's part of Black Rosie Media.
Well, it's always my honor. You are amazing, and I wish you continued effusive success because you deserve it and you work for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.